Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to J Wall Sports. We are back here with another episode.
Another. Hey, Pistol,
This,
our receiver, hit my line. Hit my line.
what is up with you in this? When you bench your seasoned veteran quarterback this late in the season, it's sending a message to the team.
Then goes out. And now they want to play with some heart. They want to play with some effort.
I see why Doc got fired. If you're not gonna make the adjustments as a coach, you need to go up and get up out of here.
Wentz has regressed. And it's a mental. I mean,
Disclaimer: he might have some outrageous, Max Kellerman type, things to say today. I don't know what he's gonna say, but the way he's starting off his video is giving me them vibes. What's up, J Wall Sport fans? Welcome back to yet another episode. 2021 has been our year. We are now on episode 24. Is that correct? Yes, we are on episode 24. Yes, sir. And we got an exciting
Mamba
episode.
mode.
Yes, sir. Why you bring them up, bro?
I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry, bro.
R.I.P. Kobe, man. But speaking of Kobe, one of the perennial days in his career was the NBA draft, where the Charlotte Hornets traded him
Folded.
to the Los Angeles Lakers, and the rest was history. We all know the story of Kobe. Kobe, he don't take grudges lightly, and he held that grudge for a minute. And another player who selected in the NBA draft as the #1 overall pick as the first in-person NBA draft since 2019, where all these athletes got to show off their fashion statement, and we got to see Cade Cunningham was selected #1 overall by the Detroit Pistons. Now, Sean, how do you see Cade Cunningham performing with the Pistons this year?
This year, I can see him kind of learning the NBA. I don't expect him to do a lot. Coming out of college, I wasn't really, sold on him. So honestly, in my opinion, he's gonna have to prove it to me this year. When the tournament came, I seen him taking a lot of ill-advised shots, a lot of shots, period, throughout the tournament and the conference tournament. So, and then if he's supposed to be one of these top players, and his team didn't really do that well, Oklahoma State. So, I mean, they got some pieces they put around him, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But I can see that as a get your feel kind of year. He's gonna get a lot of burn, a lot of playing time. So, it's gonna be a little learning curve to get going. It's just to see how he responds to everything after a month or two. I might be sold on him, but to me, he's gonna have to prove it.
I disagree with you completely. I don't know what you smoking on. From what I've seen from Cade Cunningham, he's a really good player, and I see his development taking that big leap forward depending on what position the Pistons have him playing. He's listed at 6'8", 220 pounds. That's a really big person to be a point guard. And for what the Oklahoma State team was asking him to do, which was everything, he performed really well. He has a lot of tools that'll be translated to the NBA. He has, like we say, he's a big 6'8" point guard. Like, that's starting to be more of a trend that we see. You got Lonzo and Melo. Both of them are big point guards. It's big point guards all around the league. We're getting out of the time where we see, your 6-foot point guards. We see him here and there still, but I don't see him as much anymore. He has the physical tools defensively that allows him to cover guards, wings, and big. His timing in field has all been an elite level, and he's a really good shooter, which is his bread and butter. And he's good from the mid range, and he's good from the three. I mean, think about it. We saw Devin Booker go on a scoring tear throughout the entire playoffs, just going off mid ranges and threes. I think if he can find that niche like Devin Booker has, he's going to be a really good player. But it all depends on where they're going to put him at. At a point guard spot, I think it's going to be a big learning curve from him. At the 2 guard, I think he'll be able to shine a lot more.
And man, only time would tell. I'm rooting for him though. So I mean, I hear this me saying, I'm on that Zaza pack or something. Like I'm just out here making these wild
I ain't saying all
predictions.
that.
You be undercover sometimes. So
Nah, you gotta chill. You gotta chill, dog. I don't be undercover.
So moving on, we're gonna still talk about the draft. What team do you think had the best in the draft? What who did what they needed to do on draft night?
The team that did it what they needed to do on the draft night, and I think they're gonna be the sleepers until 2-3 years from now when we come back and talk about it, and that's gonna be the Atlanta Hawks. Now we saw the Atlanta Hawks, they sort of struggled against that Bucks team when Trae Young and John Collins were not on the floor. And I even talked about this in my article on Talking Point Sports, how the Hawks are the top performers and one of the top performers in the NBA draft. Like I said, they needed scores, from John Collins and Trae Young when they are not on the floor. And that's exactly what they got. I mean, they got Jalen Johnson from Duke University, who was in the mix of talking to be the number 1 overall pick before he had that troubling season at Duke. I mean, when just like he's such a good player, and when you looked at his draft analyst by Mike Schmitz on ESPN, it sounded a lot like a player they already have. And I'm gonna read it off to you, and I want you to tell me what player it is. So he's 6'9", 220 pounds. He's a fluid ball handler for his size and a crafty passer. He has an impressive combination of size, strength, and explosiveness. Johnson is a versatile defender that can guard 1 through 5 with good off-the-ball instincts for blocks and charges. Who does that sound like to you?
Cam Reddish.
No. John Collins. And I say John Collins because John Collins is sort of molding into that kind of player. Now, John Collins is not the fluid ball handler, nor he's a crafty passer as Jalen Johnson is, but all those other things, strength, explosiveness, good off the ball instincts, blocks, and charges, those are all things that Jalen Johnson does. And I think that's why he and Sharif Cooper are going to they're going to fit seamlessly into that Hawks offense and be able to sort of run that second unit to go along with Bogdanovich and the rest of the crew. I mean, and you just look at Sharif Cooper at what he did at Auburn. He was an all-around player and scorer. He can come off the bench behind Trae Young, and the offense will pretty much be the same way because when you look at how Sharif played and you look at how Trae played, they have a lot of similarities to them in their college days. So I don't see it happening immediately, but in 2-3 years, as we get to see him and Johnson elevate more and more, we're gonna come back and talk about how these two were the best picks in the draft for the Atlanta Hawks.
They do that. That does pan out the way you're saying. Atlanta's gonna be hot Atlanta for a minute.
Mm-hmm. Especially with Lemon Pepper Lou, he's on the free agency list, so we're waiting to see if they'll retain him. I think they might retain him. I don't see them retaining him with the addition of Sharif Cooper, because I think he'll be getting a lot of that burn for that backup point guard position.
I'm gonna tell. I said.
Go ahead. I was gonna ask you what you say.
I said the Pistons had the best draft.
Yeah, the Pistons were my second, so I can agree with you. Go ahead.
You made a great case for Cade. All the potential's there. I just have to see it. Right. In my opinion. They drafted Isaiah Livers from Michigan. He didn't get to play in the tournament due to a leg injury. And they drafted Luke Garza from Iowa, another big that can go down low. Well, not another big, a big that can be down low. And if you think about it, depending on how they have the offense set up, you can have Cade, Isaiah Livers, Garza, and Jeremy Grant. That's a pretty decent lineup.
That's a big lineup, though.
And Hey, who's the coach?
But that works though.
Dwayne? No, it's not Dwayne Casey.
Is it? No. Keep going, keep going. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
No, I wasn't. No, that's not C. Clifford. Either way, this team could be sleeper in 2 or 3 years if these pieces come together.
Yeah.
Because you have
Please
Jeremy
agree with you.
Grant, who could be a stretch for. Guys that can stay down low, get rebounds,
You're right.
put back.
It is Dwayne Casey. Dwayne Casey is the coach.
When he was in Toronto, Toronto was a really good defensive team. So you add that length that you just said. That's a big team out there. And Livers can score the ball, Cade can score the ball, and Grant's proven he can score the ball and be the best defender on the team. And he can also teach Cade and Livers how to defend these star level players that has, So I do believe, like, hey, they are putting the right pieces together, and we just got to wait and see if all these pieces are going to pan out and it can make things work, make things shape. Because it's looking real solid on paper.
On paper, it looks really solid. Yeah.
So
if they can put some pieces together for that second unit, I could really see them, in 2-3 years from now being, a force to be reckoned with in the East.
And that's what the draft is all about, putting the pieces together for later. And they have the pieces right now. Just gotta see it through, my boy.
Yeah, they got
you
got to see it through, my boy. Yeah, but I agree with you. The Pistons were second on my list. I even talked about them in my article on Talking Point Sports too. Luke Garza was, a real highlight for me besides Cade Cunningham because he was the consensus National Player of the Year last year, and he was killing it on every level, especially in the post at 6'11". That it's not a lot of 6'11", 7-foot centers in the league that are getting a lot of burn. So if he can, find his niche in that league on that team, he's going to be really good.
Honestly, I can see him translating into his own version of Andre Drummond when he was at Detroit. I ain't say.
I look now. That is that's a big comp now. That's a big comparison.
In his own form, though, because DeAndre really can't shoot. Garza can scratch the floor, shoot a little mid-range shot or whatever, little post-up turnaround. And since the game is changing, you need a lot of bigs to move. You need to shoot. And he can run the floor and he can pass a little bit too. So, and like I said, it's a new form of Andre Drummond. This is his role as the big man on the team to get those boards, get those putbacks, to kick it out to the shooters that you will have and Cade and Livers on the outside. So,
all right, but we're gonna always be able to come back to this, right?
And do.
Okay. So, hey, as long as you are tracking. Speaking of special players in the draft, Nyshawn, who is the steal of the NBA draft?
Oh man, I have two. I really can't decide on one. Honestly, three. But I'm gonna get the two. Day'Ron Sharpe, he was going to the Nets, but it was a trade with the Suns. And since you said tracking, like I said in previous episodes during the NBA Finals, the Suns are missing another big man. And what do? They get another big man who can run the floor, stretch the floor, pass. And you got to think he's going to have Chris Paul as his point guard showing him the ropes. DeAndre Ayton, who's already showed he can be a promising big man, to show him the ropes as well down low. So I think that can be a really good steal. And you can see that they missed another interior presence when Dario Saric went out and Giannis had his way. So they added another big who can really help that second unit out. Maybe even help the starting unit out, depending on how they want to play it. So I think that's the steal. And Davion Mitchell from Baylor, he went to the Kings. Him and De'Aaron Fox can get things shaking. Davion Mitchell got compared to Donovan Mitchell. And that just says a lot in the way they get. And they were the same number, same last name. And then you throw in on Tyrese Halliburton. He's a long stretch, but he could probably move him to the 3. You still got Harrison Barnes, Marvin Bagley. So that's a pretty good piece to add in between all of that.
Okay. I want a completely different direction from you. And I even talked about this a little on the last topic, and it's Sharif Cooper, man. Sharif Cooper is going to be the steal. He is box office the way he plays. He's exciting to watch. Like 20-8 at Auburn, like that. I think in a few years that'll be able to translate to the NBA. He passes the eye test. He's not afraid of the big moment. He's a willing passer, and his defense isn't that bad either. Now it's gonna take him some time to get on that defensive level for the NBA. But if he can continue to go on the scoring pace that he was at Auburn, even if we cut it in half and he's at 10-4, that's pretty good for coming off the bench behind Trae Young, who's already going to give you 30 and 10.
Now, I was debating on him too, so I had a couple options on that one. That was
this is a really really good draft, and I think picking one person to be the steal of a draft or picking two people to be the steal of a draft is very difficult, because I think a lot of these players are going to pan out to be really good. And you got to think about it. We're moving on to a new era. Every time we move on to a new era, it's a really good draft class. You got to think about the 96 draft class, where you had Kobe, you had AI, and you had a whole bunch of other players. Like, that draft is loaded. You got to look at the 2003 draft. You got four out of the top 5 have rings already. Melo was in that draft. LeBron was in that draft. D Wade's in that draft. Like, that was a loaded draft too. So I think this is going to be one of those loaded drafts that we come back and think, I'm like, wow, these were some of the changing of a new era kind of drafts.
Moving on to our last and final topic of today's show. Which player are you looking forward to see playing the NBA Summer League?
Man, I got one player and one player only, because I swear he should have been in the league a long time ago. He should have at least been on a summer league team 2-3 seasons ago, and that's LiAngelo Ball. He's finally getting his opportunity to join he was on the Detroit Pistons summer league team last year for a couple of games, and then they released him. He didn't even get any PT. So I'm excited to see him to play with the Hornets. Hopefully, he can play well and he can go on with the Hornets. I think a 6'4" shooter that is strong and can play in the post is going to be needed. And I don't see why he hasn't been in the league already. But hopefully, he can go out there and he can show the doubters, why he deserves to be in the league. He's been working all off season. Well, he's at not off season, but all season and all off season. That chill. I did not even mean for it to be like that. I did not mean for it to come out like. But yeah, he's been working hard during his time that he hasn't been there. He has 2 brothers in the league that he probably plays against all the time in one-on-ones, learning different things from them and watching their games. So he can probably take a few things from their game. But I think, he's going to pan out, and I'm really, really excited to see him, and hopefully he plays in their first game on Sunday.
I knew you was going to throw that out, so I was like, let me come up with
You knew I was going to say Jello? Dang, we done been together too long. You ain't supposed to know I was going to say Jello.
Nah, I knew that was coming. This is another person I thought could be a steal of the draft too, but it was just so many options. Like I said, Jason Preston from Ohio. The Clippers picked him up. Sleeper pick. If you don't know his story, didn't get recruited out of high school. He was going, I forgot what he was doing. I don't even know. Either way, his friends told him to come, like, hey, come play this AAU tournament. They was like, all right. He was like, all right, bet. He gets recruited, goes to I don't even know the story off by heart. I can't think of the name of the school. It's like a training school.
Yeah.
And he goes there and plays, and they have like an A team, a B team, and a C team. starts on the C team, plays well, goes to the B team, plays well, move him up to the A team, still plays well, but he decided to go back to the C team, basically like regularly in a sense, and decides to record him playing, posts it on YouTube, posts it on social media, and goes viral. And that's how he ended up at Ohio. So now he's going to be on the Clippers. He's going to be behind Rondo and Reggie Jackson. I can see in a couple of years him coming maybe be one of the top 6 men of the year, depending on if he stays there for long or if he goes somewhere else. But just to see him pan out, really great passer. They compared him LaMelo without the height, but like the way he passes the ball, the way he plays, his game is very similar to Melo. So I'm really looking forward to see if his story continues to pan out the way it does, and he hopefully he excels in the G League. So, well, not the Summer League.
Yeah, man. I know you're talking about. He was killing it when he was in the tournament. So I'm excited to see him. And you got a vet Rondo that you can learn up under. Forget everybody else.
And he already excel at passing. So.
Right, but you get to learn under Rondo. Rondo, like numbers wise, he's not a top assist man, but if you know the game, you know that Rondo is one of the best passers this league has ever seen. So to learn from Rondo, and his IQ was up there with everybody. Like we talked about this before on how like Rondo's IQ is, and how Doc Rivers talked about it on the podcast with Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes, All the Smoke. How Rondo would want to come into practice and ask the coach questions during film study that he knew the answer to, and if they got it wrong, like actually no, he's 30% from the right corner, and he's 25, and he's 50% from the left corner. We want to let him shoot in that right corner. Like what? That's the kind of stuff that Rondo wants to learn, and if he can learn that kind of mentality from Rondo, I there's no way he can't pan out. Yeah, man.
Well said.
Appreciate you. But that's all we got for you guys today. Appreciate you guys for tuning in to another episode. If you guys haven't, follow us on social media. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, all at JWall Sports Productions. Follow me and Nishan on Twitter and Instagram. Our social media handles are in our bios on all social media platforms at JWall Sports. If you guys haven't, hit the follow button, subscribe, like it. Keep showing us love on Twitter and Instagram. We appreciate you guys as always. And
we out.
We out.